Is it ethical to market condoms to teenagers? Should we be handing them out in places that we send our children to for an education? At what point do we as a society recognize the standard for morale in the United States? Some say it's necessary for the health of our population, but at what point do we realize the implications of condoning this behavior? Today I will be arguing that free condoms should not be distributed in public schools. As a mature adult and remembering what it's like to be a teenager, this specific controversy caught my attention. After much research on the topic and my own knowledge of life's responsibilities, I felt it imperative to state my side of the view. It is easy to see why some may think giving free condoms out to children is a safe idea. But I'm here to remind you that we are talking about an age that society would call naive, irresponsible, vulnerable, curious, and most importantly, minors. There are numerous reasons for this argument, but today I'm going to focus on three major factors. I believe that distributing free condoms in public schools would, 1, negate the responsibility of parents, 2, that sexual activity is an adult activity, and 3, it can encourage sexual activity. The distribution of free condoms in public schools can negate the responsibility of parents by raising children by government standards. The United States Supreme Court introduced the Parental Rights Act on June 28, 1995, declaring that the right of parents to direct the upbringing of their children is a fundamental right. By introducing more than just education and handing out contraception is a statement to parents that the government believes you are not doing your job. As referred to my handout, in an article dated January 2004 by Robert Rector titled, "What Do Parents Want Taught in Sex Education Programs?" discussed a survey by Zogby International in 2003, which represented 1,004 parents with children under the age of 18 were asked, how would they prefer their children to be educated about sexual activity? 75% of parents want teens to be taught about abstinence and contraception. By distributing free contraception in schools, these courses contradict and undermine the basic values parents want their children taught. Secondly, parents have a right to practice morals and values as children's legal guardians. It is imperative that our young people have a moral value system by which to live. Although there is a separation of church and state, it is important for our society to remember that religious practice is allowed and present in many family homes. By distributing free condoms in schools, this can very well contradict what is being taught at home. Statistics of teen pregnancies and STDs are high, not because free protection wasn't distributed in schools, but because young adults need to be taught morals and values, that sexual activity is an adult activity and therefore can have consequences. This takes me to my second major point, that sexual activity is an adult activity. Adult activities such as driving, drinking, and sex can have serious consequences. There are laws and regulations based on the proper age to engage in such activities. Yet children are curious and often feel the constant desire to grow up fast. If you feel mature and responsible enough to participate in adult activities such as sex, then you should be comfortable enough to go out and purchase condoms. Schools are not the place for condom machines, just as schools are not the place for cigarette machines or alcohol bars, said one debater on debatepedia.org. The definition of a school is an institution designed for the teaching of students under the supervision of teachers. Hence, an educational facility was built as an institution for knowledge, not a store, hospital, or free clinic, which are appropriate places to hand out contraception. Condoms are being handed out without proper education, which is causing many adolescents to misuse them. In an article written August 2006 by Christian Norquist, which outlined researchers from Southampton University who conducted research on the incorrect use of condoms, said that out of 1,400 students, they found that 6% of those that used a condom had not put it on early enough, while another 6% had taken it off too early. What may be even more striking are the reasons why adolescents choose not to use protection. Written in an article on September 2008 by RedOrbit.com, said that researchers from Bradley Hasbro Children's Research Center recorded that 1,400 students between the ages of 15 and 21 who had unprotected sex in the last 90 days documented that the reasons were condoms reduce sexual pleasure and that their partner would not approve. So how can we ensure that adolescents will even use free protection? We must continue the message that sexual activity is an adult activity. This brings me to my final point, that distributing condoms in schools can encourage sexual activity. We all remember being curious teenagers, and peer pressure is ever present today, if not more than when we were kids. The desire to be popular often exceeds the safe, smarter, and mature way of handling a situation. In an article written by Marcelina Hardy in 2009, initialing statistics on peer pressure revealed that approximately 50% of 12 to 17-year-olds feel pressured in sex relationships. Distributing condoms in public schools can create avenues for inappropriate sexual games and additional peer pressure. Dan Frozier of the New York Times, dated September 2009, talks about sex bracelets, whose color are to indicate the level of sexual activity that a student has either engaged in or is willing to engage in. What other games will free condoms create? Although smarter and safer to encourage contraception use, but not encouraging abstaining, gives the notion that sexual activity is risk-free. Once you eliminate the risk, the activity becomes all that more desirable. If you could dive in the ocean without the risk of drowning or being eaten by a creature, how many of you would freely swim in the ocean without fear? With the rate of teen pregnancies and the rise of STDs, it's imperative that we get the proper message out to our young society. By handing out condoms in our public schools, it not only negates parental responsibility, encourages sex, or undermines the fact that sexual activity is an adult activity, but it also lowers the standards of our society. We must remain and push to keep the bar set high. After all the evidence I've presented today, it is a clear argument that teen pregnancy and STD numbers are high, but not because we didn't hand out free condoms in public schools. Former President Ronald Reagan, when asked about education's basic purpose, once said, "We're beginning to realize once again that education, at its core, is more than just teaching our young the skills that are needed for a job, however important that is. It is also about passing on to each new generation the values that serve as the foundation and cornerstone of our free democratic society: patriotism, loyalty, faithfulness, courage, the ability to make the crucial moral distinctions between right and wrong, the maturity to understand that all that we have and achieve in this world comes first from a beneficent and loving God."